Right here?
Yeah.
All right.
All right, everyone. Some people are leaving, Bill. I don't know what that's about. I'm uncertain.
Stay.
It's going to be interesting. So I first want to start off, much like I started off earlier in the day, to say that we are kind of disappointed that there are folks that are unwilling to go ahead and sit down with someone they disagree with from time to time and have a cordial conversation. So whenever we do this annually, we always try to find a brave, shall we say, left of center person to sit with us. And in this case, Bill, you took the short straw, and you're here because you're good-natured, and we want to hear what's on your mind. And we want to hear, go ahead.
No, that's not true. I know that Lanny Davis was your first choice.
Yes, Lanny Davis.
And I'm only here because Lanny Davis refused to come. But Lanny Davis did arrange for Tom Steyer to pay my transportation.
There we go. Well, there's this
Carbon neutral, I'm sure.
Oh,
the
yes.
truth of the matter is that I think Lanny Davis just does whatever Bill and Hillary Clinton tells him to do. I think we figured that out. We figured that out loud and clear. Okay, so let's start off with talking about a theory that I have that, and we talked about this theory as we started the conference, that there's a lot of political realignment going on. I don't know if you see this in your own life. Sometimes families are getting together for holidays, and people are fighting about things they never used to fight about. And in the Republican nominating process, obviously an outsider like Donald Trump was able to capture the nomination, win all these primaries, win all these debates, and eventually become our president, thank God. And on the Democratic side, Bill, you saw a lot of change going on over there as it really became a Bernie Sanders versus Hillary Clinton fight with some similar dynamics, obviously with different policy positions. What is going on in the Democratic Party?
The Democratic Party, we are on fire.
Okay.
Well, first of all, let me,
Yay.
in fact, if anything, we've got too much energy because we have too many candidates running. I mean, there may be 9 or 10 by now. There'll be 20 by the time we get through the first debate in June.
And I can just tell you, that always works out great.
And I remember that you guys had the varsity and the JV.
That's
poor,
right.
Poor Lindsey Graham, by the way. He's a good guy, good friend. He never got off the JV stage.
Yeah, poor
and
guy.
he should have been on the varsity stage.
Yeah.
So come on. But you had varsity and JV. I think we're going to end up having varsity, JV, and middle school. Right? 3 different levels of debate. But there is, you can speak for the realignment if there is in the Republican Party. I'm not an expert on that realignment. But on the Democratic Party, there's been a big realignment, and it's Bernie Sanders. I mean, I was a Bernie bro in 2016. If you've read my memoir, which is called From the Left, it's still up on Amazon. It's still available. From the Left.
How much does it cost?
Shit, I don't know.
That's not
Sorry.
This is a student conference.
7-second delay.
I do want to mention that I talk in my memoir, the Bernie Sanders campaign started in our living room on 8th Street on Capitol Hill, just around the table with 12 people we put together for a little dinner there. So I was a Bernie bro from the beginning.
So we can thank you for all the socialism?
Damn right. Proud of it. But my point is that Bernie really moved the party, woke up the party, moved the party back to its roots, I think, fighting for working class Americans. And Bernie in 2016 and Donald Trump had almost the same message, which was we got to fight for the middle class, fight for the little guys, raise the taxes on the wealthy, and
fight the
get the
establishment.
country moving again.
Charlie, jump in on the...
Where was Bernie's platform on illegal immigration? I don't remember that one. No, I'm
Bernie's
kidding.
Bernie's for border security, but not for deporting
I'd like to
everybody
see
who's
that
here
border
illegally.
No, it's fascinating to look back. You know, if you look back, I mean, and a lot of it played out in this room or at this conference. You know, when you go back and you look at the Tea Party insurrection inside the Republican Party, and I mean, it was a crack up, obviously, and it was very painful, and it cost Republicans seats, and it probably even, in some ways, in the short term, hurt conservatives. But in the long term, in the long run, those growing pains have been terrific for conservatives,
Yeah.
and I think make the Republican Party stronger. You're not going to agree with this, though, Bill. But the reason for that is that the Tea Party was dragging Republicans back to the more conservative principles, like the Constitution, meaning exactly what it says and not something else. What I see, the problem I see for, let me back up a second. The exact same thing that happened to the Republicans back, 10 years ago is what we saw happen 2 years ago in the Democratic Party, and we see going on right now. And it's the insurrection within the party trying to dismiss leadership and take the party in a new direction. The problem is that this insurrection is taking the party in a direction that is not more towards the principled tenets of our founding, but towards, I don't know what it is. Socialism, and whether it's the environmental stuff or it's the really militant economic stuff, I don't know that in the end it ends up helping the Democratic Party.
I want to hear what Tom has to say, but I do want to respond to that.
Okay, you get to hold a marker.
Yeah,
Tom,
thanks. Okay.
The fundamental premise here is there's a lot of realignment, a lot of change. People that would have always associated themselves as a Republican maybe are rethinking some of that. The same thing is true with Democrats. And then you have these ideological, philosophical movements. I think the conservative movement is really the most important part of this Republican coalition. And you have this socialist, progressive, liberal, whatever terms you want to use. That's really animating the Democratic side, and that's causing some change. Is this right? Do I have this right, or is that fabricated?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as you look at the populism that is roiling the parties, and a lot of it, as Donald Trump represented, is anti-establishment anger and fervor, you can draw a straight line back to the economic crisis of 2008. The great sorting of our life, our culture, our politics has been going on for decades, and it's been progressing sort of apace. But 2008 was really a dividing line as you look back on it, when people really looked and lost faith in Congress, institutions, Washington, did not feel that anyone was hearing what they were saying. And you saw basically in 2016, the parties almost changed positions. And it was something that we had an inkling of, but we were still surprised by how well Donald Trump was able to communicate with folks who made less than $50,000 a year, who had less than a college degree. Those had traditionally been Democratic voters by and large. And conversely, Democrats did well with higher income folks, more well-educated folks. So the coalitions have sort of switched in a way. Donald Trump was able to take the Republican Party. You mentioned the Tea Party. That was almost an exclusively an ideological purity test on fiscal issues, right? It was driven by the bank bailout of 2008. Donald Trump is not a fiscal hawk. He doesn't pretend to be one. It is not a part of as much a part of the conversation now as it was back then. But you look at all the other issues, whether it's trade, whether it's foreign policy, certainly on immigration, Trump has reordered and reprioritized the Republican Party in a way that none of us really expected, to the degree that he has done. And so it has been, I think. I think we will look back on 2016 and see it really as a realigning election, and not something that is just unique to Donald Trump, that's going to live on for the Republican Party and the Democratic Party for a few cycles to
I know
come,
you have a marker there, Bill. We're going to let you jump back in, but he brings up an interesting point on this whole idea of the Tea Party. Charlie and I would probably say it was more a focus back on the Constitution and its words, but it was definitely seen as a pushback on profligate spending by Republicans too, by the way. And so an interesting thing on the bank bailout, Charlie, bailing out all the big banks. My guess is you and Bill might have a similar position on that. We shouldn't bail out all the big guys because, there's a big moral hazard in saying just because you're big, the middle class has to pay for all your mistakes. Would that be right? Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, no.
Do you think? Let me ask you another question. Do you think can you kind of understand, even though I think AOC doesn't understand, from my point of view, very much about economics. That's a pretty nice way to say it. But I mean, by the same token, as a conservative, I don't love the fact that the CEO of Amazon is getting a multi-billion-dollar tax break and kind of a subsidy, right? So that's something maybe the both of you would say, yeah, that doesn't make sense.
But also, you know, I mean, I consider myself a fiscal conservative. It's the most, when people talk about Washington, what's going on now, this is not normal. I'll tell you what's not normal. What's not normal is $22 trillion in debt that your grandparents and that your grandchildren and great-grandchildren are going to spend the rest of their lives paying off without enjoying any of the benefits of it. And it is absolutely despicable. That said, when people, and Tom is exactly right about how President Trump this has not been a big cornerstone of his platform. And I don't like that. I wish it were. I wish he was going around. I wish he eliminated 7 departments tomorrow of the federal government. And nobody would notice it for about 15 years, except the press would tell them about it. But the thing is, and this is my problem, is that we're on a political stage here. Who in all of Washington has a leg to stand on to complain about misspending money? These people have been doing it for decades. And that's why I agree. I wish Donald Trump was a fiscal hawk. He's not, but at least, thank God, he didn't claim to be.
Whoa. But here's my marker. Right?
You're not really shrinking violet. Come on.
Come on.
Go.
No, but $7 trillion of that $22 trillion
Did I say
is
that?
from the Donald Trump tax cuts in November of.
No, it's not.
Yes,
No.
it is. Yes,
No.
it is.
No,
Yes,
but
it
I thought you were
is.
gonna-
I'm sorry. Check it out. Yes, it is.
But-
Facts.
hold on.
Wait.
No, but-
Facts. You can't dispute the facts.
No, but-
This Donald Trump had. Donald Trump.
I thought you were going to say what I thought you were going to say.
Well, can I finish what I am trying to say? Donald Trump has added to the deficit, and all these so-called fiscal hawks, like Bob Corker or Jeff Flake of all, they ran for cover under Donald Trump. They didn't fight that. Bob Corker said, I will not vote to add one dime to the deficit. And Donald Trump said, no, we're going to pass a tax cut for the rich. And Bob Corker said, how high do you want me to jump?
I think there might be a response from Charlie or Tom here. I don't know.
Well, listen,
all I'm saying is you are creating your own problem, and you're looking the other way when Donald Trump does it.
What? Well, no. What I thought you were saying, I thought you were going to say, no, hold on a second. I thought you were going to say that President Bush was responsible for X trillion dollars.
Yes, too. Yes, also.
And my point is, exactly. That's why I think so many people got so frustrated with the Republican Party. And that's why I don't think anybody in Washington has a leg to stand on to complain about this stuff. I do hope that we get back to this and figure out a way to solve this very grave problem. It's the gravest problem.
But let me,
you would agree with me that George Bush added to the deficit, and so has Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean,
and Obama. Thank you.
just
Tom,
add-
hold on. See, this is exactly what we wanted. Tom, jump in
just
here.
real quickly, look, the Trump administration, Larry Kudlow was just up here talking about growth helps a lot with the deficit and the debt, right?
It
So
does.
to the extent that the economy continues to grow, that solves a lot of these problems. The second thing I would say is, look, this is all relative. And when Donald Trump is going to run against a nominee, whoever that is from the Democratic Party, that is proposing $90+ trillion of spending for the Green New Deal and, universal health care, single-payer health care, universal child care, free college tuition, whatever that plan's going to be, he's going to look like a fiscal hawk by comparison. He's going to be able to put his record up against the Democrats, and that's where I think he can actually make the case to fiscal conservatives.
but the good news is that AOC is going to rebuild all of your houses.
So I love this. Here's one member of Congress, a freshman member of Congress, who introduces a non-binding resolution, which basically, even if it passes, it has absolutely zero impact.
Thank
and
God.
the Republican Party is scared to death of AOC.
Bill.
You know, I salute AOC. She's the smartest, most powerful member of Congress, and she's a fresh person.
They think it's so funny.
You can laugh about cow farts all you want.
Hold on, let me.
That's not the Green Deal.
You've now said 2 words. An S word and an F word. Although it wasn't our video. So
That was Mitch McConnell who said cow
that's fair
farts,
enough.
not
Okay.
me.
So, but
just quoting the majority.
let's pull this back a little bit. We have had some fun as conservatives looking at these firebrands who've been elected to this new House Republican caucus. But I'm going to say, you're going to now boo me, but I look at AOC and I think every policy I've heard from her I disagree with. But I actually do think it's rather amazing that this young person beats Joe Crowley out of nowhere, and now she is, pretty creatively, I think, become the head of the Democratic Party. I think she is the most important Democrat in the country. You like that, Charlie?
I love it. Partly because not only do I love her enthusiasm, and I think she may be the least educated person in all of Washington, and zero life experience whatsoever. But what I really like about her is that she reveals just how the very tenuous grip that Democrat leadership has on their own party today.
You are so full of it. I can't believe it. First of all, in the spirit of
Sound like my wife.
You actually really do sound like his wife. That's exactly right.
in the spirit of AOC, Matt, I do want to thank you for the diversity that you've shown on this panel today.
Yes, okay, fair enough.
By the way.
By the way, I don't know if you know this, but you're a white guy.
I know, I'm saying. Okay. 4 white guys, that's all I'm saying. That's right. No, look, the thing about AOC is she's young, she's got some big ideas and some bold ideas, but don't worry. The person in charge is the smartest politician, among the smartest politicians Washington has ever seen, and that is Nancy Pelosi. Thank you. Look where she is. Look where she is.
Nancy Pelosi.
She is speaker for the second time. First female speaker, and then again.
All right.
And she won 40 seats the last time.
All
You
right,
can
hold
laugh
on.
at Nancy Pelosi. She knows what she's doing.
Charlie, sit back. Sit back. Hold on. Tom.
Yes.
I've lost my credentials as a moderator here. I'm trying to grab them back. I'm trying to grab back my dignity here.
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
let's switch just a little bit to what is going on in these presidential contests, right? So on the Republican side, I'm one of those people that says I think Donald Trump actually will have at least one primary opponent. I actually think that is going to be good for him. And I think there's going to be a lot of Democrats who run, and I actually don't think that's necessarily bad for them. Give me your take on how these fields are shaping up.
Well, yeah, I mean, Bill Weld is already running. We may get someone else in the race to.
Where's Bill Weld running to? I don't understand.
That's the point. The point is that it's a kamikaze mission against Trump. I mean, Trump has 85, 90, 95% support among the base, and Bill Weld or Ben Sasse or Jeff Flake or John Kasich, whoever you choose, is not going to pose a real threat to him, or any threat, actually. On the Democratic side, we're going to see this great sorting, and I actually think the problem about Nancy Pelosi, the problem that AOC poses to the party. This is a Democrat who got 16,000 votes in a primary. That's why she's a congressperson. But the difference is she's got over 3.5 million Twitter followers. So she has a huge megaphone, more than any of those other new Democrats in Congress, the centrists who are all like gnashing their teeth now over what's going on. But everything that she says, everything that she does, everything she proposes is immediately reflected back on these 2020 candidates. Kamala Harris, what do you think of the Green New Deal? Oh, I'm for it, right? So she's going to drive the conversation in 2020, and all these Democratic candidates are going to have to answer to whatever she says, which is not necessarily a good thing. But I do think, look, this is a critical moment for the Democratic Party. It reminds me, if you go back through history, you look at 68 election, Richard Nixon, Hubert Humphrey. Democrats had a choice to make. What are they going to do? Are they going to sort of go back, or do they go left? They went left with McGovern, and they got wiped out. I think the party is moving to the left, and the question is, whoever they nominate.
Do you think the country's moving to the left?
I think there is a sense, if you believe the public polling data, that some of these ideas that they are proposing, Medicare for all, it sounds great, right? Who doesn't want free college tuition for their kids, right? It's actually, when you get down, it depends on how it's worded, and then it depends on when they have to explain how you pay for it, and who's going to pay for it, and whose taxes have to go up to pay for it. Then it becomes much, much less popular. The question is whether they ever have to get that far or not. So I do think there's a sense that they're moving left. But the question is really, who whoever the Democrats nominate, will they be able to reconnect with those voters in the 7 states that matter, in the Rust Belt, in the Midwest, right, that voted for Obama once or twice and then flip to Donald Trump? Can they connect with those people and bring them back? And I'm not sure we know the answer to that, and it certainly depends on who they end up nominating.
And if you look at the polling in those states today, number one, raising taxes on the wealthy, even the AOC's 70% tax rate, tax on income tax for income over $10 million, in the Fox News poll, 70% of Americans said absolutely they support it. So, you know, these ideas are not necessarily, you say they're that far to the left. I think they're where the mainstream Americans are. If you ask people about Medicare for all, now look, there are variations in the theme. Medicare for all also polls up in the 60, 70% nationwide, and Democrats won 40 seats on that last time. So yeah, you accuse us of going too far to the left. I think these are the issues that those states that we're talking about where Hillary Clinton did not campaign, where Democrats have to campaign this year, those are very popular issues in those states. And people got elected on them.
But, sorry, real quickly, there was an article in the New York Times just the other day about these moderate Democrats who just went home, right? Over 20 of the 63 new Democrats in the House of Representatives are from swing districts that Donald Trump won. And they are getting an earful from their constituents about the Green New Deal and 70% tax rates and all these things. Yes. It's going to be an issue. It's going to be an issue for not only for the Democrats in Congress, but for the presidential candidate.
And nowhere is the Green New Dream a bigger killer than in those very districts where Donald Trump came in and stole all those voters from Democrats. But the last time Democrats, the Democratic Party, hated somebody as much as they hate Donald Trump right now was, of course, in 2004 when George W. Bush was in office, and they hated him. And you remember the whole thing about dated Dean, married Kerry? They ran off with Howard Dean, who was crazy. And he had all these crazy ideas, and the loony guys. I think there were even some remember the Deaniacs?
Deaniacs.
The Deaniacs were going crazy about him, and they chased him out to Iowa and everything, and then he had to scream and everything. And so all these people, they got right up to the Iowa caucus, and then they were like, oh my God, we hate this guy so much. Are we going to take a flyer on this guy? No, let's go with the safe guy from Central Casting. Let's go with this idiot, John Kerry. And so at the end of the day, they dated Dean, married Kerry. Now, the question is, and it was all because their entire campaign was fueled by their hatred of the guy that was in office. The same dynamics now. The question is, now there are like 50 Howard Deans running around spouting crazy stuff, and everybody's running around dating, and everything's exciting and everything. And my question is, if at the last minute do they stop and they go running to some staid character from Central Casting who could run? And I hope they don't. I hope they go with the craziest person they got. But the other problem is, even if they do, you have the situation with the superdelegates. I think it's going to be very, very hard for the elder, senior, old guard of the Democratic Party to pull voters, or to skew this in a direction that's more moderate or more or less loony.
Again, I think you've been watching too much Fox News. I mean, that's not where the Democratic Party. Look, the Democratic Party took over a couple of weeks ago in the House, and everybody said, oh, like you. Once they get in there, man, it's going to be all bash Trump. That's all they're going to do. They're just going to hold these hearings.
Did you turn on the TV yesterday? That was their first hearing in the whole thing.
I would point out.
It was like a Godfather series.
What have they done? That was not, no matter what Jim Jordan said, the first hearing of the House Oversight Committee. The first House Oversight Committee hearing was on prescription drugs. They have voted on prescription drugs.
That was the first witness, he said.
No, he didn't.
Fact-checking the fact-checkers.
Yes,
he did.
I'll take you on that one.
Fake news.
I watched it all day. They have voted on gun safety yesterday. They have a bill in on Medicare for all. They have voted on voting rights. My point is, they're not just bashing Trump. They've got a legislative agenda. That's what the Democratic candidates are going to be talking about. And I think those are issues that appeal.
But here's the deal. We're all going to get to watch how this unfolds. The Democrats have the majority in the House. They're gonna show the country what their values
Right.
are, what their priorities are. So they won't be able to hide, and AOC is gonna push them, and these other hard-charging House members. So back to this, I wanna ask you a couple of questions as we come mercifully to the end of our panel. But
Thanks a lot.
no, Bill, you're a great sport to be here. Let's go back to this fundamental question. I want to ask, starting with Tom. I believe Trump will have a primary opponent. If you agree with me, who's it going to be? Who's it most likely to be? I know it's a humdinger to end the thing on, but
I mean,
Charlie, do you have an idea?
No, and I agree with what you said earlier. I think that it's a good chance that he does, and I don't think it amounts to anything. He's probably within the Republican Party, he is the most popular Republican president we've had in history. I just don't think that it amounts to anything. It'll make him stronger.
Do you have an opinion on who it
Yeah,
could be?
I do. When I was driving down here today from Washington and I got to the Maryland line, I pulled off to the side and said a prayer for Larry Hogan.
So you think
Larry.
it's Larry. Okay, now let's go to the other side. There's, what did we decide, 520 Democrats running for president or whatever the number is? Tom, who do you think it's going to be at the end of the day?
well, I was going to pose a question since we already brought up the white guy question because, publicly there's a lot of pressure moving toward nominating someone who's younger, probably a woman, possibly a person of color, in part because they pose sort of the perfect foil to Trump. Privately, though, you hear Democrats say, we need a white guy to win this election. You agree with that?
No, no, absolutely
Are you
not.
saying Bill needs
I've
to
heard,
run?
I've
What are you
heard,
trying to say?
No, I'm just saying,
I'm not running.
I've heard more than one Democrat say that to me privately. They would never say it publicly,
I don't agree. I
but
don't
they
agree.
are worried about the idea of nominating someone like a Kamala Harris
I would
in a general election.
I would like to make some news right here, right now.
Right here.
I am officially endorsing Hillary Clinton for the Democratic nomination.
And all I can say is I hope you run as successful a campaign in 2020 as you did in 2016.
That's right, that's right.
My candidate?
Fine with me.
Who's your candidate? You were with Bernie last time.
I was with Bernie from the beginning last time. I have not endorsed last time. I wouldn't want to speculate who the nominee is going to be. But I think that I'll just say this, if Joe Biden gets in, Joe Biden will be the nominee. Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States.
Wow.
I-
What a terrible way to end this panel. What a terrible way to end this panel. But I want to thank you guys for being here. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Bill, you're a good sport. Thanks
thank
for
you,
being here.
guys.
Tom,
Thank
you're a good sport.
You might be fake news, but we love you anyway.
Thank you, Charlie. That was fun.